This is the ultimate question. What phone should I buy today? Not everyone has $1,000 to spend on a phone, but if you have $100, this might be the phone for you. But there are some things you need to know. Should you buy the Google Pixel in 2020? Hello everyone, this is Matt from Real World Review. Check out the social media listed above and the description for some extras. Alright, let's review the Google Pixel. No numbers, no Excel, just the Google Pixel. For a 1080p screen, I'm actually kind of a fan. It's a 5-inch AMOLED display made by Samsung, and what is that on the bottom? This is a huge chin. Either way, the screen actually looks pretty nice. Not as sharp as a Pixel XL, but still pretty good. I'm not used to small screens anymore, but it wasn't too difficult to get used to. I honestly forgot when I was using this phone that it had a 1080p display, so trust me when I say that it's actually not that bad. With this said, mine didn't feature any screen burn, but yours might if you buy a used one. There is Corning Gorilla Glass 4 on the display, but it can still scratch and break. Trust me on that one. There's some minor color shifting when turning the screen, but that was pretty standard for AMOLEDs at the time of release back in 2016. You won't be disappointed with the screen other than the size. Maybe. As you can assume, if the battery hasn't been replaced, this section will be horrible. Before replacing the battery on this phone, I got an hour and 15 minutes on the Geekbench 4 battery test. I replaced the battery and boom, over 4 hours. Going with those specs means that this old battery would probably maybe get me through lunch, whereas the new battery would last 24 hours with medium usage. There are power saving options, adaptive battery, and so on, but the truth is that this 2770 mAh battery is decent. It's not supposed to be good, and you'll have to respect that. Still, watching a few YouTube videos and getting a match of PUBG here and there won't really destroy this phone, but heavy usage is not recommended if you're trying to get through the day. This phone is able to power through the day with very few issues, but the phone is getting old. Like I told you, the battery in this phone is terrible, so you would want to replace that. Once you do that, getting through the day is very easy, but using the phone the whole day is questionable. The Snapdragon 821 and 4GB of RAM sounded awesome during the launch, and it was, but with Android 10, this phone is finally experiencing some lag. Not terrible for a phone that started with Android 7.1 Nougat, but it is noticeable. Playing games is not impossible, just know that the phone will get hot and the graphics won't entirely be the best for every game. There is a single bottom firing speaker that works fine, but it could be louder when you're trying to listen to something outdoors. The earpiece speaker works fine as well, but can go bad very easily. I replaced this one just like I did on the Pixel XL. Hey, did you see the headset jack on the top? I actually don't know what that even does. Still, the phone gets the job done and honestly worked well for everything I needed to, which is surprising to me. Let's be honest, every Pixel phone is still really good, even in 2020. The camera setup is the same as a Pixel XL, so if you've seen that video, prepare to hear pretty much the same thing. Except for the fact that as time goes on, this camera gets less spectacular. Also, the camera app has changed with Android 10. I don't like it because honestly, Google kind of dumbed it down. There are a few options for photo resolutions like full or medium. It used to tell you size in megapixels and ratio, but now you have to swipe down if you want to change the ratio. Next is video recording, which literally gives you 1080p or 4K recording, which is fine, but the way to switch to it is so simple that it's kind of insulting. I can go on about this, but at least we can do 1080p recording at 60 frames per second, something that the Pixel 3 still cannot do. Portrait mode is still called lens blur and works fine. The rest of the camera app is still fine, with night sight and other stuff that you'll probably never use, but it's still there. The shots that the camera takes, whether it's on the back or the front camera, is still pretty amazing, but compared to modern flagship phones, it's definitely showing its age. Video recording is still fine with 1080p 60 frames per second or 4K at 30 frames per second because that's what we were stuck with when the phone launched. I really have no issues with the cameras whether we're talking about the back or the front, but there are better cameras out there. The phone has laser autofocus just like the Pixel XL, and that just means that video and photos will focus easily, and honestly this is my favorite way to have autofocus in a phone camera. Lacking optical image stabilization is not entirely a deal breaker for me, but the electronic image stabilization can be weird sometimes. Again, amazing shots from the rear camera, but this 12.3 megapixel camera can only be so good for so long. Well, that's hard to answer. What is left for this phone? There are no more updates coming out of this phone, and honestly, it might not make it to 2021. The Nexus 5X and 6P came before this phone and were made effectively useless in 2019. Seriously, there was a glitch with the phone app on the Nexus 6P, making it difficult to use because there was a conflict with Android 8 and the phone app. Then there's the standard stuff like USB-C, Android 10 support, headset jack, and, well, that's about it. There's no wireless charging, no water resistance, a 4-year-old processor, small 4GB of RAM, lack of memory card support, and so on and so on. Look, this is a good phone in the same way that an old Honda is a good car. I won't continue with that analogy, but either way, if you throw a couple dollars into a DIY project like replacing the battery and maybe even the earpiece speaker, you'll actually have a good, reliable phone. Plus, if you buy the phone with 128GB like I did, you'll actually have a really good phone, or at least a really nice iPod. And it'll have USB-C on the bottom. This phone is an icon because this was the phone that made Google actually care. Before this, they contracted companies to make their Nexus line, which I thought was pretty awesome, even with the flops that they had. But the Pixel line is where Google decided that these are their phones and they should make them. With this said, HTC made the Pixel, Pixel XL, and the Pixel 2, but now they're moving away from that with the Pixel 3 and the Pixel 4 line, but there are still some things that look like Samsung other than their screens. Still, this phone was the start of one of my favorite, most disappointing phone lines out there. Second to that is what Motorola did with the awesome Moto Z line. So should you buy this phone in 2020? I would say it's worth it. Sure, battery life will suck in most used versions of this phone, but changing the battery makes life with this phone so much better. At $100, this phone is a good replacement for modern day budget phones, but clearly can't compete with the flagships of 2019, let alone whatever 2020 has planned. Still, this phone has a metal design, headset jack, and pure Android. What more do you need? And that's all I wanted to talk about. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section or message me on Twitter. I get bored over there. Also, check out the other social media listed above. Subscribe and hit that bell button if you like the channel and want to see more videos. And if you made it this far, this is awesome, and I appreciate that. I have over 160 videos out there, so you're bound to find another interesting video for you to watch. So, do that, please. Thanks for watching.